Hi, everybody. This is Steel Rose's podcast. This podcast is created for women by women to elevate women's voices. I am especially excited this evening to introduce all of you to our guest. We have Elizabeth Kipp with us. She is a best-selling author, stress management specialist, trauma-trained and yoga-informed recovery coach, ancestral clearing practitioner, historical trauma specialist, certified yoga teacher, and PBT Institute betrayal coach. She specializes in stress and chronic pain management. She has a diverse background in plant science, agriculture, ecology, environmental studies, and remote sensing and hold. And she holds a BS from the University of Delaware. She pursued an MS in environmental studies at the University of Kansas with an emphasis on remote sensing, ecology, and environmental resource analysis. She has done basic and applied research and has authored and co-authored a number of peer-reviewed research papers. Elizabeth Kipp is a longtime seeker of truths with a foot each in the spiritual and scientific worlds. Her life experiences and training enable her to bridge the gap between these two worlds. Elizabeth, welcome to the podcast. I know that was a mouthful, and I'm like so excited to talk to you this evening. So Elizabeth, I gave everyone like a real broad overview of everything about you. I don't know how you had time to fit all of that into your life at this point. I only have 1 degree, and now I'm like, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners and let them know, how you ended up where you are today, and really pick a focus area that you think is lighting you up in this moment.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm so excited to be on your podcast because there's nothing more that I like than talking to other women about things that we don't talk about normally. And one of those things is the imprint of ancestral energy. And I remember feeling that energy at the age of 4 years old, feeling it in the room. What am I doing in this family? I literally asked that question. But of course, in my family, you didn't ask that kind of question out loud. Nobody wanted to hear about that. And I didn't know what it was except the weight. And I knew there was something that my family wasn't telling me, but I felt it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until probably 12 years ago that I was able to oh, that's a thing. That's actually ancestral weight. So the way I got here was I come from a lovely but dysfunctional family, which was why the "what am I doing in this family" thing was happening. And I had a lot of chronic pain as a child because of emotional repression. Right? Sit down, be quiet. We don't want to hear what you have to say. And then I asked you a question. Give me an answer.
But you told me not to. You told me not to say anything.
So anyway, a lot of emotion there, but I'm not allowed to emote. No, what am I supposed to do with that? So that sets you up set me up anyway for what I call today a chronic stress pattern, where I'm always looking for the threat. That was the way. I mean, I never knew when I was going to get in trouble or for what, because that's the way it was. But, it was the kind of dysfunction I was dealing with. So that sets up in the nervous system. This is how we do life. We do life like this. And it's a habit. It has momentum. And it's that particular chronic stress is actually caustic to the nervous system. It spins up all kinds of stress hormones, and we're not made for that. So anyway, that really informed my life. And I had an accident and broke the base of my spine, an equestrian accident, and ended up having a lot of surgery to try and stabilize that. And in the process, there was a lot of pain involved. And in the process, the doctors, so that went undiagnosed for a long time. And then when it did get diagnosed, it was improperly treated. All they knew was here are your opiates and your benzodiazepines. And, this is what we have. This is the best quality of life you could get. And I was like,
there has to be.
And they said, you can't heal from chronic pain. Now, that blew me away as a patient, coming from academia. Well, they're the experts. They know all the stuff. And so I believed them. And it was devastating to me. But there was something in the back of my mind that was like, there's something wrong with this picture. And it took me a while, but I finally figured out that they had made an error. This is where the science part came in, right? I had all this training in how to do science research and assumptions and questions and all the things. And I was like, oh, they've forgotten their basic science, which is science is all about probabilities. It's not about facts. They said you will. They should have said the probability is. They didn't say that. They gave me a pronouncement. So I knew that they'd made an error. And the other thing was they were telling me, so they're working, Western medicine works in the scientific model, which is it's a self-limiting framework because it can only talk about that which it can observe, measure, describe. It can't talk about anything outside of that. But where do we live? We live in the all that is, not just in the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. So our healing, we reference all of it, not just that part. So I knew that they were telling me about the limitation of the model they were working with.
Right.
And they really weren't making a comment about the body's ability to heal. They were saying within this model, we see this limitation. But that's not what they said.
Right. Because they're only referencing the one model. And what I want to say for the listeners that might be tuned in at this point, for medical professionals, like they have to basically use a particular framework. Like annually for all disease states, for all, like I'll go with, OBGYNs for example. There's this organization called ACOG, and it's like the American Society of this and that, whatever. There's these larger organizations that will set out these like frameworks, like this is how you treat your patients. This is how you can diagnose them. This is the structure of it. And so all medical professionals kind of fall under these cones of, oh, well, this top said this, so everyone is going to follow that. But what Elizabeth is saying here is, but there is something outside of that. So yes, that's one framework. That's one way to treat things. But just because there's the medical side, but there is a whole other side to being able to address things. I want to circle back to because you did say about 12 years, or when you were younger, you had felt like the ancestral energy. And I am actually very curious about this because I very much am into energies and how your own energy and the energy around you affects your health and affects your well-being. Ancestral energy, like what is that exactly? Like how would you explain that?
Wow. So I have to build a framework for the audience here. So they have a frame of reference because that's a big question and I want to paint the landscape. So people come to me and they say, I have this issue and is it ancestral or is it, what is it? And really from an honest science-y point of view with looking at it from the quantum field, not the Newtonian, but the quantum. Think about this. Imagine our lives. Each of us is in a Russian doll. Those nested dolls, one doll and a bigger one and a bigger one, right? And in the very little one on the inside is me with just my stuff, or you with just your stuff, right? Next one out is me with my actual family, my nuclear family or my immediate family.
Okay.
The next one out is where I live, the culture that I'm living in, and its effect, right? That energy, it has an energy, right? And then the next one out is maybe the country that I'm living in and the vibe of the country. And then we've got the world. We also have the present. It's all in the present moment. What's happening in the collective in this moment? Well, are you talking about my family or the collective of my family or the collective of the town? We got a big football game going on here where I'm right now. There's all kinds of stuff going on there, right? Or is it the state? Is it the country? There's all kinds of stuff going on here. Is it the world? There's all kinds of stuff happening on the planet. Then we can look at celestial stuff and the effect of the body, of the celestial body. So we're it's a big landscape.
Yeah.
Add the last doll, which is the ancestral piece. So you're looking at the quantum field. We access through the present moment. We access the past, present, and future all at once. So I can't actually answer that honestly, that, oh, it's this or it's that. But we address it. We address all of it, whatever it is, through the present moment. And we include the ancestral piece. So now I felt this weight, as I said, dysfunctional family. And I knew that my mother was distraught and unable to cope with life. And I knew that my dad, it wasn't like he was a doormat. He just kind of was very quiet and kind of held space. There was such attuned to the whole family the best that he could and tried to be calm. Right. So his lap was the safest place in the house in my life. Right. So as a kid, but I felt this heavy. I even felt the heaviness from him. And I didn't know until later because nobody talked about stuff in my family. Yeah. We don't talk about that if it's unpleasant.
That's like the whole generation though, because
it's like, oh my
I
God.
talk about that actually a lot. I joke with some of the guests. I'm like, there's a whole generation, like my parents' generation, where like you didn't talk about your feelings, like that wasn't a thing.
That's right. We don't talk about that. So, but I felt it. And I felt the weight. And the problem was, listen, I'm a 4-year-old kid and I'm feeling this stuff and I don't know what to do with any of it. And so I just felt it. Now, one of the things that kids do, and we do clear for this in Ancestral Clearing, one of the things that kids do is when they see their parents struggling, they'll do everything they can to take that on for them. And they can't, but they do it energetically. You talk about energy. So now, now you've got, oh, I feel this thing and I'm going to take it on. So that I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does. And so I understand. I get it. So I want to try to distill it a little bit more. So for the listeners, for everyone tuning in, it isn't just, we're not talking about like it's not a physical presence, but it's all happening like on the same, well, maybe it is a physical presence that, like I said it and then I'm like, oh no, but let me say it in energies, like energetically, she was sensing. And the way that you might sense that, or someone listening might sense that, is you get a feeling. If you're in tune with your intuition, you will pick up the energy in the room, or you will get this feeling. And it's not just in the room, in the space that you're in, with the people that you're in, the weights that people are carrying. My husband is very sensitive to this. Like, he's really sensitive. My kids, very sensitive to it. Like, we're high in tuned in the house. My kids very much can sense like when I'm frustrated or I'm stressed out. My daughter specifically, one of my girls very much tries to, it's very sweet, but I've been trying to remind her lately. I'm like, it's not your job to have to do this. She tries to make everybody happy. And so she'll get really silly. And I have twin girls. So one of the twins will get very silly. And because she's trying to pick the energy up in the room. And the other day, I noticed her doing it more so. And the other day I pulled her aside and I was like, listen, I just want you to know this. And I'm going to remind you when you do it again. I was like, you don't have to do that. I appreciate that you're trying to make people happy and you want everyone to have a good time. I was like, but you only can control your own feelings. You can't control the feelings of everybody else around you. And I'm trying to get that message across to them now and their kids. Like, lessons like that to me is like really crucial, because a lot of, even myself included, a lot of people who, have experienced like trauma growing up, or, like my parents' separation was trauma for me when I was growing up. And because of that weight that I went through with that, I always felt like I had to fix things. I had to carry everyone else's emotional burdens. And that's not, it's not your responsibility. So I was relaying that message to my daughter. So I'm like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to lift the energy in the room. Just be who you are. That alone could lift the vibrational energy in the room. Just be yourself and like be your own person and be happy in the moment. And that would essentially lift the energy in the room.
Well, that's a blessing, the dynamic you just described in your family, and that you've got that openness and awareness. In my case, I think I arrived on the spot sensitive, and with the dysfunction in the household, like the eggshell walking, it was like, I have to know how to read the room and I have to know how to read people in order to keep myself safe. So that gets really quite, I think it's interesting because my brother, who's 3 years older than me, completely opposite. We both got, we have these conversations like, wait a minute, what household did you grow up in?
We grew up in the same house. I know, I have the same problem with my brothers too. When we all get together, like my older brother remembers things so differently. And I'm like, where were you? Where did you live?
But he's much more, it's more like his deal was to stay safe. He just numbed out.
Yeah.
I was just fully alive and held on to all of it.
You were really in tune with it. And you were picking up on it. And honestly, that like pull and you pulling from that energy and then you really internalizing it because you know, it's like, God forbid you open your mouth, you're going to get it, but also open your mouth. Like that, all that like really confusing messaging, like that all gets like kind of ingrained into your nervous system. And you had said it earlier, you're like, you learn this way of being and then you take it with you. And then because your energy was aligned to that, you probably attracted some not so nice situations earlier on because your energy was sending out this signal of like, think of it, and listeners, you think of your energy and how the energy in your body almost like it's like a bounce back reflection. Like everything you put out is going to come back over to you. So if you are carrying around this weight of stress and trauma and you know, this energy that you inherited and you pulled from, you know, growing up, if you don't dispel that and you don't you know, acknowledge it and let it go, that could really rot your core. And it will come out in physical ailments. Like that is how it works.
Yeah. So I'll lay it out for you. You beautifully said, and I'll lay it out just a little bit more, like a little more physiology there. Is we have a stress response that's this amazing mechanism that when we get threatened or perceive a threat, which is the same to the nervous system, it goes on. And all this physiology, psychology, biochemistry just comes out. We meet the threat. The stress response goes into the off position. In chronic stress, the stress response gets stuck in the on position. So now you've got that issue, and that changes the way the brain perceives the world, which feeds right into what you just said. Now, what's interesting to me, and I love this so much, the brain is this highly sensitive, attuned to the present moment thing. So everything I'm doing in the present moment informs the brain.
Yeah.
Now, the brain has the momentum of the past built into it. And I know I have a stress habit. I've been working on unwinding this stress habit for 12 years. And it's so much better. But think about it a little bit like physics. In physics, they say an object in motion stays in motion until acted on by an equal or opposite force. All right. So a habit, stress habit, any habit in the nervous system has momentum. All right. So it's in motion. It's an object in motion with momentum. So the only way you're going to change that situation is to come with an object of equal or opposite force. Meditation is one of those things. Ancestral clearing is one of those things. Yoga is one of those things, right? Etc. So, but you have to kind of understand what's happening. And all those practices, they work on the present moment.
Yeah.
And so I have an old, and why am I still working on this freaking habit? Because I built it over like 60 years. Yeah. So every time that I am in a situation where I'm starting to feel activated in a dysregulated way, I've had enough practice now. I drop into the breath. I put some space between the words. Where are my feet? All the things, right? What am I doing? I'm shifting my attention to the new way of living instead of dropping into the old one, right? Because that old stress habit actually is a default. And I'm learning, and I'm building a new default.
What Elizabeth is describing right now is she's essentially rewiring her brain.
Exactly.
So I've done some reading on this. I discovered meditation. I think I told you when we had our intro call. So I had discovered meditation about 4 years ago, roughly, maybe 3 years ago. I had hit like a crossroads in my life where I was like burnt out. I was just totally burnt out. You know, my kids were born 2016 and 2017. So I had 3 infants at the same time. And while that was happening, I still was like, oh no, I'm still going to have my career. I can do it all. And I was only asleep for about 4 years. I was only sleeping 2 hours a day. And I was working like these crazy hours because, you know, once you have kids and you want to be a professional, you're like, oh no, I need to make up for the fact that I had children. So you work extra, you know, and I went through this 4-year period of like just completely depleting my body of pretty much any kind of anything. So much so that I kept saying to my cousin, I was like, I feel like something bad is going to happen because I am just not taking care of myself and it's just running me ragged. And so we get to the house that we live in right now. We bought it in November 2021. Spring 2022 was when I hit this wall and I was like, I have to make a change here. I can't keep doing this. Something needs to give. Between 2021 and 2022, I stumbled upon meditation. Actually, while I was researching how to podcast, because I didn't know what to do, I stumbled upon this woman who had this successful podcast. This is synchronicity at its finest, by the way, Elizabeth. That's why I like to tell this story.
I hear that.
I was looking like, oh, how do you podcast? How do I do this? And when I did that, I found this woman's podcast, and she had an episode that was like how to podcast. But then she also had all these online courses. And I took one of her courses that included podcasting, but it was so much more. And it was, tapping and meditation and breath work and really learning the science behind aligning your energy with the universe and what's really there. And it was like this massive awakening of my spirit that was like shrouded for 37 years. And I finally was able to uncover her. And it was like this glorious rebirth. And in that meditation, one of the practices that I did that it was very interesting because it goes back to the weight that I felt like on my spirit. And one of the practices was, you go into meditation and you get yourself into the present moment and you focus on your name. So you say your full name. So I would say like, I am Jenny Benitez. And you would focus on that for a little bit. How does that make you feel? What do you feel when you say your full name like that? And it felt loaded. It felt heavy. Like I felt the weight of my entire world, which really is real, on my shoulders. Because that is true. Like and you said it earlier, like I do it all. I do it all. Like I carry a lot. And then the second part in the meditation was just to say, well, I am Jenny. The first time I did it, I was sobbing. Because the differentiation between this weight that I was carrying and me, just like in the nesting dolls, the Jenny in the nesting doll that was just me, was like this free spirit that had been crushed, and she was just desperately trying to claw her way out. And
love that.
It took, that was like a full year of me like scraping off all the walls and the brick that I had put up, and it was the craziest thing. And it was rewiring my brain. And I noticed it was very interesting because it didn't just affect me. Like while I was going through this, it affected my husband positively. It affected my kids positively.
Of course.
It impacted our marriage positively. Like it did all of these things. And I've talked a lot on the podcast about your energy and aligning it in the right way. And, there's also like, when you're with people, you'll notice like there's people that if you go and visit people and then you leave, you're going to feel drained. It's because the weight of what they're carrying affects you while you're with them, and it draws from your energy.
Yeah, we have to be conscious.
You have to be aware. And so like the biggest thing that I always say on the podcast, and I've said to other people, I'm like, your feelings are really a barometer. Like that's really you. If you feel uncomfortable or you feel something's not quite right, or I can kind of sense that this person, they're smiling in my face and they're saying hello and they're hugging me, but I get like a feeling. And that's when like, oh, this person, like their energy is not quite right. Maybe I don't want to spend as much time with them. And once you start like scraping these things off, like you're going through it right now, as you're saying, like you're rewiring your brain. It's like creating it's getting yourself back to you. It's not creating a whole new person. You're already in there, but it's just a matter of like cleaning everything out.
Yeah. I love that you did that exercise. I did something similar to that because I learned once I felt the weight of the family, and then I learned about the family. I was like, oh my God. And it became this, I don't know, this thing that I carried. And,
like a backpack.
A lot of rocks in it. And I sat one summer, I think it was the summer of 2019, so close to when you were doing your thing.
Interesting.
I sat there and I sat with this question in my meditation: who would I be without the story of my family? That was a very powerful question. Yeah. So the answer was, I don't know, but I'd like to find out.
Like, I want to
It's
it's
kind of
really,
like that, but
it's really interesting because it's like you go through your whole life, and a lot of people are going through their whole lives on autopilot and just doing what they should do and not realizing that there's this whole other plane that is trying to tell you something and you're not listening.
well, it's like when you're talking about that, I break it down as simply as possible for me because I just do better then. I mean, I can do complicated, but it doesn't usually serve me. So, am I feeling contracted
Yeah.
or expanded in this conversation or around this person or in this group or whatever? And that is a great barometer. The other thing I want to say that I just want to like underline what you said because it's so important and it's kind of the principle of ancestral clearing, why it works in the first place. Think about like the 3D world, the Newtonian kind of physics, where you take a bag of marbles and you throw them on the floor and they'll scatter and they'll come to a halt and they'll just sit there. And then you push one of them and all the other ones stay still.
Yeah.
Just that one moves. In the quantum world, when you push one marble, they all move in relationship to that. So when you're doing that work, this is our world. We're all marbles in the quantum field, moving in relationship to each other. I kind of made it a little bit complicated there, but that's what's happening. Why your whole family is affected.
Yeah. And I was worried at first because I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm doing all this work to try to clear myself. And, at the time, like my husband was still how he always was, like very, not, I don't want to say he was very negative, but he carried a lot of weight. Like he had a lot of weight. And majority of what he said, it was kind of veered towards the negative. And I used to say to myself, like, my God, like I'm trying so hard to fix me. And like, what if like he pulls me? Like, what if he pulls me in the wrong direction? And the opposite started to happen. And we started to go like together on up. So it was I was very happy to see that. And even like, my kids, they will reiterate some of the things that I say to them where I'm like,
of course they do
this or do that, like, I mean, yeah, they repeat everything basically, but I like to be able to like lead by example. One thing I wanted to share with you too and the listeners in the same line of energy, I haven't done a lot of research into chakras yet, but I have been like kind of touching on it. Yeah, I've been kind of touching. And one of the things that the throat chakra is very important to me, as you obviously said,
sure.
to use my voice. It's very important to me. And so last 2.5 years ago or so, I was working at this other job. I have a different job now. And I interview in my industry, you have to interview a bunch of times and go through this whole big thing. So I get this role at this agency, and within a couple of weeks, randomly, I lost my voice. Like physically lost it. Never had happened to me before. It's gone. For a week, I couldn't speak. I'm like, oh, that's odd. But at the time, I'm like, oh, that's odd. I didn't think anything else of it, just besides that's odd. While I was at that particular agency, which ended up being a very bad place for me to work, in a nutshell, while I was there, I lost my voice 4 times, flat out. Just lost it. And I remember once I hit that fourth, it was between the third and fourth time was when I had started to figure out meditating and everything. And that's when I started realizing, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I think I'm physically losing my voice because the energy is so bad. And I work virtually, so you can imagine if I was working in person, how bad it would have been. The energy was so bad that it quite literally stole my voice.
Well,
I have since
I think
left,
I wouldn't I'm going to push back on that because I wouldn't give my power away like that. I would say that it's reacting in such a way that it's giving you some information, and what you do with that information is
I like that better than what I said.
Well, it's just a different perspective. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, yeah, I'd look at it a little bit differently. It's information, and what am I going to do with this information? And you kept getting the message again and again.
Okay, that perspective. Thank you for doing that, Elizabeth. That perspective sounds much more right for what the situation was, because it was almost like. And now that you've said it, it was basically like a signal saying, like, look at how you're reacting here. Like, look at this is like a warning shot to tell you.
Well, now this is the thing. that you're talking about, we're both talking about, is the consciousness to see how we're reacting, right? We're not calling it bad or good or right or wrong. We're just saying, oh, I'm doing this thing, is this, again, am I contracting or am I expanding in this experience?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. You're right. It's really, and that's one other thing I want to touch on too here is that not many people are paying attention in that way or really like listening. I think there's been signals and signs my entire life for things that I missed. And now when I will think back on stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this makes more sense now because this happened and this all fell, this way into place. It's once you start to tap into this, it's very interesting because there's so much there. And then it makes so much more sense for the lives that we're living now. And, Elizabeth, one thing that I worry about, not worry, but something that also crosses my mind quite a bit now, especially now in today's world, there's so much noise because of social media.
God, I know, man. Oh my God.
It's like, I'm not, the podcast I have on social for obvious reasons, like I have to put it out somewhere, but like me personally, I'm not engaged like that. Like I work on a computer all day. So as soon as I can not look at a screen, I don't look at screens. And I see my kids and my husband, everybody constantly and the noise pollution. And I think it's further disconnecting our whole society from how we're supposed to be.
Well, there's that aspect of it, 100%. And we have to be very discerning about all that we're bringing into our field: food, water, media, everything we're consuming. We really want to try and be conscious. The other thing I had to say about the digital world, Johann Hari wrote a book fairly recently called Stolen Focus and How to Think Deeply Again. And it's very interesting because he talked about a phenomenon. It's a lot of science in it. He talked to a bunch of scientists that worked on focus and stuff. One of the things that he talked about that really impressed me was this phenomenon of switching. So you're switching from, you and I are having a conversation right now, but if I had a notification on my phone and stopped and went and did that, and then I came back to you, that's really hard on the brain because now I have to expend energy coming back to where I was to begin with. And it's not only inefficient, it's actually really hard on the brain, right? So really to like, yes, digital world, but your instinct of like getting off the screen as soon as possible, right on. And we want to really, 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 drop the notifications unless they're absolutely crucial, because it's just ding, 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 and the mind is being, and now we're actually like, we're adding stress into the brain, right? And now we can't think straight, and it affects the emotions, and we get more negative and all the things. So that's an important point. So we have to be discerning, and we have to kind of understand, how does this brain actually operate relative to what's happening in the world, like how we're responding, right?
You know what I thought was very interesting when I was learning about rewiring my brain was that when you're going through that practice of like trying to change how you're responding to stuff, obviously it takes repetition, right? And for a lot of people, what ends up happening is because they make that first leap and it feels uncomfortable, they stop. In their head, they're like, oh, well, it feels uncomfortable. It must not be right.
That's an error because
it's in the manual.
Yeah, because remember momentum, right? Habit, momentum. And we're trying to change the trajectory. So we've got networks in the brain that are running, the more we access them, the faster and quicker that they fire. And when we try and change the brain, it gets uncomfortable because the brain is actually doing work. So when my meditation teacher said to me, we took us through, I do Kundalini yoga. We do these crazy meditations. They're amazing, but they're intense. They can be kind of intense. And he says, you're going to feel resistance. And that's when you know it's working. So you're going to feel resistance. And that's when the brain's starting to change. So hang in there, because you get on the other side of that. But the resistance is the sign that it's working.
It's interesting because I get resistance. I still get it. Like I get resistance and I get fear like quite a bit. And one of the things that has happened to me, especially with the podcast, because this is, my husband has said to me, he's like, wow, you really like, you talk about a lot of stuff on there. And I'm like, he's like, you just put it all out there. A lot of people have said to me, like women have said to me, like, I, I don't know how you're comfortable doing that. And I'm like, I don't know. Like it feels so good that I'm like, I can't not do it. So one of the things that happens quite a bit with the podcast is I'll want to stop. It happens a lot. And I want to say at least 2 or 3 times a year, I'll get this almost like a dip is how I refer to it, where I'm like, I don't know if I should still do this. And a lot of it also will be like imposter syndrome kind of situation where I'm like, I think I said I don't know if I said it to you or somebody else. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, who are you to be bringing guests on with you? Like, who the hell are you? Like, you're just Jenny from New Jersey. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing here? And I like will have these really beat up sessions in my head. And earlier this year, I had a situation like that where I was like, I was burned out. We were really busy at my daytime job, and I had enrolled the kids in way too many activities. So it was totally sensory overload for me. And then, I have the podcast, and I want to do the podcast. I love the podcast, but in that moment with everything else going on, came this dip of like, Jenny, what are you even doing? Like, just stop. You're not like Joe Rogan. Like you're not like this big podcaster, you're just this little nobody. It's very interesting, Elizabeth. Every single time something like that happens to me, within a week or two, there will be a sign that just happens that says you have to keep going. And when it happened to me this year, listen to this. When it happened to me this year, every time I come very close and I'm like, maybe I should just do a farewell episode, just call it a day. Like you did what you could, Jenny, kind of thing. This season, when that happened to me, in the month that it happened, it was in June. July ended up being the highest downloaded month for the podcast.
I was going to say you probably got a whole bunch of downloads.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was double my normal amount. It doubled. And I was like, oh my God. And then this month I got notified, podcasts are all ranked and stuff like that. And I got notified that I made the top 200 list in Peru. And I'm like,
oh, that's cool.
What the hell? I'm like, this is really cool because, and the reason why, and listeners, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you will have moments like this, like in your life, there is going to be moments where you're like, I'm going to throw this all away. The podcast, like it's something I love so dearly and deeply, but I still will have these moments of like fear and, imposter syndrome and all these things. And I'm trying to rework my brain to understand like, no, Jenny, like this is it. Like, this is good. This is in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing.
Would you like to, we have time for me to do an ancestor clearing for everyone?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But maybe it might help clear some of the frequency of that in you and whatever else. The imposter syndrome is pretty common. So it might help this is actually ancestor clearing is a trademark registered process that was taught and developed by John Newton. It was pioneered by Howard Wills. And it's really a prayer process. So we call on higher power, whatever you call that. We'll call it creator today. We're calling on it to help us release that which no longer serves us. We're not asking it to take anything away. We're asking it to help us release. And so we do it with humility and gratitude. So we do the please and thank you. So we'll just, everybody just listening, just notice what you're feeling as sensation in the body. And maybe give it a number of intensity from 0 to 10. And you've got a number. And then just breathe normally and let these words pass over you. O divine spirit, creator of all that is, all that you are, thank you for the many bountiful blessings you bestowed upon us and our lineages. We come to you knowing you're always here with us in all your great and vast nature. We ask humbly and gratefully for us and all our relationships and all of our ancestors and all their relationships throughout all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all inherited energies passed down to us that were residue of wounds we didn't create but were born into. For all the stories we created because of them. For all the misunderstanding, blame, and suffering that ensued in the lineage as a result. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all the times many of us were abandoned, neglected, or otherwise betrayed by parents, caregivers, partners, or the community, in love, in friendship, or leadership across the family line, for the letdown we felt and all the deep mistrust of life and love that followed, for not feeling safe to receive support, and for any fears of being abandoned if we turned into joy, visibility, or our truth. Please help us all to forgive and release one another and forgive everyone involved, directly or indirectly, for all of it. Please and thank you. For all addiction, escapism patterns any of us fell into, whether alcoholism, drug abuse, emotional eating, gambling, control, achievement, codependency, or any other pattern that kept us from looking within ourselves for the answer to our wholeness, for the legacy of numbing our pain as a survival strategy and how it kept us from living life fully and allowing ourselves to feel you, Creator, flowing through us, and for all the limiting beliefs, judgments, and conclusions that we had or made that kept us playing small, not able to reach our full potential in life. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all the experiences we had of injustice, persecution, systematic oppression, or other portrayals of authority figures, teachers, coaches, doctors and nurses, lawyers and judges, spiritual leaders, and anyone else we look to for leadership, for the times we felt anger and profound letdown at you, Creator, and for how that weighed on us and our lives, and for any spiritual grief we felt that made trust and surrender seem impossible. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all survivor's guilt, for any shame we carried while others in the family or the community suffered, for any inherited guilt from past hurts or harms done, and for any time we were unable to stop harm from happening. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all sexual hurts and wrongs, and any time they were minimized or went unspoken. For all secrets within the family and how in such darkness those secrets festered into wounds. For any shame carried in the family around our innate animal nature, and for any confusion or conflict about any of our relationships to sensuality, boundaries, or expression. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all conflicting DNA, any energetic tug of war in the lineage, opposing values, unresolved family feuds or vendettas, or mixed ancestral allegiances, for any negative residue left from the genetic imprints of both the oppressed and the oppressor, and for any felt sense of identity confusion or not knowing where we belong. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For how any of these wounds kept us playing small in life, for any fear of being seen or heard, or stepping into a position of leadership, for the times we felt we had to suffer in order to earn love or even have a sense of belonging, for any time we fell prey to subconscious sabotage around success, intimacy, or abundance, for any cycle of perfectionism or any imbalance between giving and receiving. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. Please help us step into our power and find freedom from the burdens of this lineage. Please help us to release these patterns and turn back to realizing our inherent wholeness that can never be diminished. And please help us to reclaim that space within us where our true nature was, is, and always will be. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Now take a nice big breath in and let it out and notice how that feels in the body.
My neck started cracking while you were talking. Oh my gosh, that was so nice. Oh my gosh. I don't know if anybody actually closed their eyes or not, but I did. I loved it. That was like, that it feels, that I can feel it.
Yeah. It's powerful work. Yeah, it blew me away the first time I experienced it. I was like, my science hat was on. I was like, what's happening in this room? I know something's happening. What is it? Can I measure it? Can you repeat it?
You kind of can. You can though. Like that's the part that's wild. Is like people don't really realize. Listeners, I want to pull up some of Elizabeth's websites. So in the event that you're interested, you want to look a little bit more into working with Elizabeth, I have her website linked here, The Way Through Chronic Pain. This is all intertwined. Like it's all intertwined. So it's super important to just understand, like, you know, it's not like the right hand and the left hand are working separately. They are working together on this one. Like you have to do both. It's not just one or the other. It's really, you have to just be aware and start working on your energies. And then I also have a link for your book here as well. The other one was your book. This is your website. So I have the website up now. The other link was the book. Check out the website. You'll be able to look through the blogs, like resources on here. And I'm going to link everything into the episode description as well. So you can check out Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you for joining me today. This has been like super fun. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh, such a beautiful day I've been having. And that was like the cherry on the cake right there. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
Listeners, you can catch this episode also via your favorite podcast streaming platform. Thank you for joining me today, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.